Greetings and welcome, people. I am starting this vlog for the second time. I forgot to turn my helmet camera on. Thanks to Mio for their wonderful buzzing codes for whether you turn the damn thing on or off. Anyway, the topic of my vlog today is something that I think most motorcyclists are aware of, have heard of, and hopefully not too many of you have fallen victim to, and that is the SMIDSY event. SMIDSY being an acronym for SMIDSY, standing for Sorry Mate, I Didn't See You. Now this is obviously the event where you're riding along, you're coming up to a junction, say a side road like that, or on the other side like that, you see a car waiting, you're watching it, and just as you think it's clear to carry on, I mean you have priority anyway being on the main road, the car decides they're going to come out anyway, and you either T-bone them or they T-bone you. There's been plenty of videos of close calls and crashes and things on YouTube where people have looked at it and gone, well yes, basically it was the car driver's fault or the van driver's fault or whatever, the other vehicle's fault, but you could have done this, you could have anticipated that, and yeah, I'll accept that there are things you could probably do to try and mitigate as many times as possible being collected by another road user inadvertently. But it does bring me to the question of how far do you go? Do you stop overtaking? Do you stop filtering? Do you come to a complete stop before side roads? Because basically that would mean, or make, certainly riding a bike and to a certain degree driving a car as well, pretty much a complete and utter total pain in the backside. When you're out and about on the road, you know what is expected of you, just as much as every other road user knows what is expected of them. It's written down in law, and more than that, it's written down in, well, not written down, but embodied in common sense. If you see another vehicle coming along the road and you're waiting to emerge from a side road, you don't just pull out in front of them. So I think there's a bit more at play than just, oh sorry mate, I didn't see you. A lot of the time it's not SMIDSY but SMIDL, S-M-I-D-L, meaning sorry mate, I didn't look. And if it's neither of those, then I'm just wondering whether there's another factor at play, a subconscious psychological factor. Now on the whole, I haven't actually seen any statistics on this, but I would suggest that it is in the main motorcycles that have other vehicles perform the SMIDSY manoeuvre on them. I think you're very unlikely, although it's not impossible, to pull out in front of another car, a van or a HGV. Oh, excuse me. And I'm just wondering whether there's actually a subconscious factor at work here where you're processing what you see. You do see the other vehicles on the road, but you view things like scooters, cyclists and motorbikes as far less of a threat to your safety and well-being as say an HGV or a large van or another large vehicle. So it doesn't impact on your subconsciousness or consciousness as much as one of these other big vehicles when you see a motorcycle coming along. Now I'm not a trained psychologist, I'm not trained in any kind of clinical or medical discipline, so this is just a supposition, a theory, a guess, a suggestion. So could it be that other road users do see you decide that because you are a much lesser threat to them, they decide they're going to go ahead anyway. There is also the possibility of something else I saw quite some years ago, of a guy who was, I can't remember whether he was a police motorcyclist or a paramedic motorcyclist, but he was actually on an emergency call on his fully liveried bike, you know, the sort of thing, all the yellow and orange and flashing blue lights and sirens and all the bells and whistles. Well, maybe not bells and whistles, but you know what I mean. He was negotiating a roundabout, and as he approached one of the roads onto the roundabout, there was a car there, and he could see the driver of the car looking straight at him. So he thought, okay, they've seen me, I've got all the warning stuff on, I've got the high vis, I've got my lights, should be safe to go. You'd like to think, wouldn't you? But unfortunately it wasn't the case. This car actually, where the driver actually looked straight at him, then proceeded to pull out in front of him, leaving him no choice but to basically bail out, dump the bike, and he was sliding along the road on his backside, watching his bike slide into the side of under the side of the car. And clearly he was a bit put out by this. But he basically went over to once he picked himself up, dusted himself off and collected his thoughts, he went over to the driver, who just by happenstance happened to be an old lady, or an older lady, shall we say. I'm not suggesting that has anything to do with it at all. And he said to her, "Did you see me coming round the roundabout?" She said, "Yes." "You saw the lights and the markings?" And she said, "Yes." He said, "So why did you pull out in front of me then?" And she looked him straight in the eye and said, "Well, because I'm in the car and you're on a motorbike, I have priority." He was absolutely staggered at the level of ignorance. Quite extraordinary. And I wish I could find a reference to that piece again, but it was so many years ago. It was when I was using dial-up to use email and bulletin boards, so it was pretty much before the World Wide Web was as it is now. So yes, quite a long time ago. I did read another, actually I did read something, and I was actually motivated to read up on it. I'm not claiming to be an expert or anything like that. I think it's something called circadian vision. I'll check on it. I'll check on the spelling again when I get back home and check it up. I'm saying that right. Basically, it's a phenomenon in the human and probably in other animals' eyesight, where if you move your eyes left or right, the detail vision cuts out briefly for a fraction of a second. Now I'm assuming so this is so the visual cortex, or this is because the visual cortex can't process all that information clearly when you're moving your eyes from side to side, and I presume up and down. So to save the workload of having to do that, it basically stops processing it for that brief instant of a second, of half a second. And I did read somewhere, I think it was in a advanced motoring magazine. I can't remember now, I'll have to find it. They reckon that this is possibly what's leading to a lot of these SMIDSYs. Now I thought about that, and I think, well, yes, I could see in a certain limited number of scenarios how that could be. But if that was the case, given that this is a phenomenon affecting every single person's eyesight, whether you drive or not, surely people would be pulling out in front of other vehicles everywhere. All the roads would be littered with crashes and accidents and bodies. Okay, slightly over-dramatic exaggeration there, but you know what I mean. If that was the case, if the circadian vision was affecting people's ability to detect other vehicles on the road that badly, things would be a lot worse than they actually are. So again, not claiming any expertise in this field, just thinking about it logically. I mean, I'm not an expert, but then again, I'm not stupid either. Does it really sound like that sort of phenomenon could be behind SMIDSYs? Don't know. I'm more inclined to believe it's preliminarily the SMIDL. Sorry mate, I didn't look. But people aren't going to admit to not looking before they carry out a manoeuvre. They'll say, I didn't see you, then that is usually closely followed by, you came out of nowhere, you must have been going really fast. Because every time a motorcycle is involved in an accident, as we all know, sarcasm coming up here, sarcasm alert, word. It is always the motorcyclist's fault because motorcycles are always going too quick and riding dangerously. Yep, lots from cruisers. Good stuff, guys. So yes, I'm leaning towards it being probably about 80% people not looking properly. I've had several instances where cars have, on dual carriageways, where I've been travelling past the car, I've been alongside the car in lane 2 of the dual carriageway, quite legitimately in the other lane to go past, and the car has decided they want to be in lane 2 as well. No signal, just start to move across into my lane. Now initially this bike obviously had the standard Triumph OEM horns on, and I think I'm already on record in many blogs saying OEM horns on bikes are not up to the job. They are pathetic. So it was after I think it's the second time that happened to me, I replaced them with some of the snail type, just about to see one peeping out from underneath the fairing cover there. And the next time a car driver did that to me, I gave them a rather decisive beep on the new horns, and the driver actually jumped in their seat. But again, if he'd gone into me, as nearly happened on another occasion when another car just didn't signal, didn't look, just started to move across into the lane I was in. If I'd had the opportunity to stop and talk to them, the first thing out of their mouth would have been, "Oh, Mini." No, it wouldn't have been "Oh, Mini," because that's not my name. It would have been, "Sorry, I didn't see you. You came out of nowhere. You must have come up so fast. You weren't there." But obviously that isn't the case. The case is they just didn't look, because most car drivers will look in their mirror, the door mirror and their rear view mirror inside the car, and assume that if they can't see anything in those, then it's safe to move. Most car drivers don't do shoulder checks, which obviously they should do, because just out there over their right shoulder is where I was on the occasions when these other drivers moved into my lane. So yes, people, if you've still got the standard OEM horns on your bike, please upgrade them. If you've got a single horn, even more important that you upgrade it. Modern bikes with a single horn probably supply enough current through that single connection to run two horns. I think AndyManCam just did a a horn upgrade on his Yamaha Phaser FAL, which had a single horn as original, and he replaced it with 2 horns just using the same supply. Whether that's going to cause problems down the line, I don't know. I'm sure he'll let us know if it does, but it seemed to work okay. If you've got an older bike or a smaller bike, it may not provide enough current through that single horn connection, so you might need to consider installing a relay, which is not that big a job. It might take you an afternoon if you've not done that sort of thing before, but please do it. It's very much worth it. If it means that you can let road users know you're there without all this nonsense about fitting extremely loud pipes, because for one thing that's illegal. Although to be fair, I think fitting horns above a certain decibel level is also illegal. For example, I don't think it would be legal to install a set of truck air horns on this. That would be a bit iffy. Not to mention look absolutely ridiculous. So please do that. Please upgrade your horn. Please, if your bike doesn't run bright lights, you could consider installing daytime running lights. They're very low consumption on those. Certainly a lot lower than a standard halogen headlight bulb. Although you could also upgrade the halogen headlight bulb to LED as well, so please look into that if you can. It's quite tricky on some sport bikes because the headlight housings are very compact and intricately shaped, which makes fitting some of these decent LED headlight bulbs quite tricky. Where's this Peugeot going? So yes, my considered and very amateur opinion is that most of the people involved in or causing those sort of accidents don't look in the first place. That's my prime suspect. If they do look and see, they may not consider you a big enough threat to warrant giving you your priority on the road. It may even be among that small number that think you have to give way to them regardless of how, which part of the road you're on. It's really tricky. It's really tricky. Yeah, okay guys. Yeah, wrong side of the solid white line divot. I suppose that could be quite high on my list of recommendations for not being involved in an accident, is to not ride like a dick. Of course, it doesn't help that more and more cars these days are being stuffed full of entertainment systems. They're becoming more connected. There's big safety campaigns on police and road agencies and that to say to people, do not use your mobile phone while you are driving. Do not. There was a incident a few years ago where a lorry driver was driving along on the A34, scrolling through the music on his mobile phone, totally distracted from what he was supposed to be doing, which was watching the road ahead. And of course he missed the fact that the traffic ahead of him had come to a stop, ploughed into the back of the stationary traffic, killed 4 people. And he was actually on his in-cab camera fitted by the company that he drove for, showing him looking at his mobile phone, scrolling through music while he was driving. So now you're getting cars and other vehicles with all the electronics built into them to connect up to your mobile phone or your iPod or MP3 player, so that you can access your music and contacts through the dashboard of the car. So now instead of looking down at your phone, you're constantly looking down at your dashboard. Okay, and the reason we're doing 35 miles an hour and the 60 limit is... I don't know. I'm certainly not going to be able to overtake. So with that little outpouring of my thought processes and ramblings of my opinions on odd things. What do you think? What do you reckon? So I think I'll call that a day on this particular vlog. I'm going to get out, give the bike a run. It's certainly got it up to temperature. Now I'm going to call in the shops on the way home, because if I don't get some more milk, I won't be able to have my coffee tomorrow. I need my coffee. So cheerio for now. Catch you next time. Bye bye. Oh, excuse me. Dum 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 dum.